So how do we go about this?
Just tell me like what you did. How was the exercise?
Sure. So I've actually put down 4 points. I know it said fifth. I realized by the time I had reached fifth, it seemed like something that was I was too flaky on. So I realized that fifth for me was maybe super negotiable.
Hmm.
So I did have like couple of pointers wherein I could probably fit them in, but I felt as long as the first four are probably sorted,
Hmm.
that's fine with me. As like I can, in fact, I can keep fifth flexible,
Right.
right? So that's how I looked at it. Now I did not know whether this was a good approach to probably look at, and this is where I needed a bit of your help. So I'll just quickly tell you what I have put down.
Hmm.
Again, I this is how I have been when I since I'm currently looking out for new opportunities. This is how I have been looking, right? Now I just probably need also your help in that. Hey, this is what you need to probably switch, right? So
Hmm.
I understand these are personal value systems as well, but I might be going wrong somewhere, right? So, for example, for me, I think I'm giving a very, very big priority to what the location or where the location is,
Hmm.
right? So, this is not just restricting myself to the city that I'm staying in, wherein I personally decided to, hey, I want to continue staying in Gurgaon.
Hmm.
So, I'm not looking out for opportunities in Bangalore or Bombay, anywhere else. But other than that, also, I think it makes a lot of difference to me as to even within Gurgaon where the office is located, right? So, I'd interviewed with a firm which is good brand name, maybe
So,
a bit of governmental
so
organization.
before you go on, so I want to know like what your actual values are. So these are filters.
Yeah.
Like location is a filter, you know. But let's get to the actual
So
values.
I'll tell you. So location was also one of the value systems that you had mentioned. So I mentioned location, but I've defined it in my own
Right.
terms, right?
Hmm.
So should be such that I would want to dress well and go to work daily.
Okay.
It's that kind of, that's how I have
So this is
defined it.
like number one
This
right
is
now.
number
Like
one.
no.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Second is founders and team leaders. That's how I have probably. So
Hmm.
I would want to look up to the founders and the team leaders and the team members that I'm working with,
Okay.
right? Third is I put job profile. So because I had mentioned that I'm at the crossroads wherein I can go anywhere, there are
Hmm.
multiple options. So I have defined it as a profile that I aspire for and respect,
Hmm.
right? So because I've also figured this, for example, event is one of my forte, but event management is something that I personally do not for myself respect. So
Okay.
I don't want to get into it, right? Product management is something that I aspire for, but it's tough for me to get into it. So I have defined it as value system. The third point that is.
Hmm.
Fourth is where I was confused. So your the sheet that you had shared, it mentioned two things. One was job tranquility, or and another was work-life balance.
Hmm.
For me, that's a sort of like an overlap, I feel,
Hmm.
and I had kept both of them together.
Which
So
is
I don't want a super, super high pressure work profile as well.
hmm.
And that aligns with me wanting a work balance too, because I do have personal passion projects that I'm working on.
Hmm.
And if the job requires me to be like,
Like full time.
available at
Hmm.
odd hours, that might just be affected,
Right.
right? So these are the four things that I have come up with. Fifth, as I said, I think it could be money, right? So wealth accumulation is not the thing, but money is, of course. Like I'm not willing to go super low on what current package or what my last package was. So again, if it's something that's super exciting, I'm okay to let go of the money as well. So I kept it sort of flexible.
Good. So I think directionally those are good. At least like you started thinking about what's important, what's not important, right? And like getting structure, like you said, like dressing up well and going to work, etc. Getting structure to your day is important to you, so like that's important. Second is like founders and people you're gonna look up to. Getting inspired at your workplace is important to you. So होता क्या है कि दो तीन चीज़ें जो टॉप की है ना, लाइक वो मिलनी ही चाहिए. देन यू बेसिकली फील लाइक यूर इन द राइट प्लेस. So this is not like a very sort of like this is exactly what I want, but at least directionally, like sort of setting your compass towards the north direction. Ki, am I getting in the right place or not? So matching what you have, like 1, 2, 3, probably 4 and 5 also. Like if you get like five, then great. Nothing like it. But like how Seema auntie said, like like you can get like one or two things at best. So they, तो
Compromises, yeah. Yeah.
तो एक दो चीज़ें ही मिलती है, लेकिन वो एक दो चीज़ें पता होनी चाहिए क्या है.
Okay.
That's the that's the crux of this exercise. Um, ठीक है. So in the interest of time, we'll come back to all of the other exercises, but just to basically like highlight this exercise, I wanted to talk to you. Um, ठीक है. So let's start. The rest of you guys are done with the exercise. Any questions on there? Abhi?
I just tried a little bit right now when she was discussing. I realized, oh, I had to do some exercise as well. So immediately I went through it. So it was all about figuring out four competencies, right? Like figuring out five attributes in the descending order. That what is the most important element you look forward to when you are planning for a change.
These are more like values, huh? That
The
you basically,
values.
yeah, which you value, technically. ठीक है.
But I think, considering my current situation, where I'm in Sunday in office, I would
Hmm.
prefer work-life balance for sure,
Hmm.
and then security, because in current scenarios, the edtech is somewhere focusing on the layoffs. So we are somewhere at the
Hmm.
edge and verge of it. Not much of a time we do have. So yes, that is the second most thing.
Hmm.
Third would be moral fulfillment, because I think even as a person, I'm not a kind of person who will stay longer in such kind of organizations where my moral fitment is not finding a place. At the end of the day, I want to go home with a peace in my mind that, oh, I did a good job,
Hmm.
no matter if somebody has recognized it or not.
Hmm.
Because usually you cannot expect from the leadership that every day they are gonna come to you and tell you, "Okay, oh, you did a good job." You There should be some kind of push
Hmm.
within yourself. When you do a good job, you know it. You don't need to go and tell other people. And since we directly in the touch with the sales team, where they sell these professionals and certifications program to the students, so I get the side as well, because they have a lot of pressure. So you can't expect that the sales is going to be morally and ethically correct at 100% level. So since I work in the background, or specifically in the service delivery, so my motto is always like to be 100% honest and transparent with my people. But if somebody is trying to putting me in a situation, ki, oh, you have to, slide one lie or two lie with the participants,
Hmm.
so that's something which disturbs me.
Hmm.
So definitely that is something which I look forward to, and time freedom. I mean,
You crossed
it,
five.
yeah, 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 and then autonomy.
ठीक है. ठीक है. Like I said, like सब कुछ तो नहीं मिलता है. So
Exactly.
like very important to know like your top three. Um, उनमें से एक दो चीज़ें तो definitely मिलनी ही चाहिए. चलो, let's start in the interest of time today's class. You guys can screen my screen? Yeah? Okay, great. Okay, so last week we talked about the direction and thinking about how to think about um, the career and what the mindset should be. What is the questions to ask yourself to basically put things into perspective, and figuring out your career values, so that you know that you're heading in the right direction. Um, Internally, like how to figure out what your compass is, to basically navigate the whole landscape of finding a great job. This week we basically focus on how to get the right tools. Now, to job hunt you need the right tools. With like hunt करने के लिए basically आपके पास क्या tools हैं? आपके पास CV है, आपका LinkedIn है, आपका cover letter है. Uh, you should have all of them in tip-top condition, in very sharp condition, so that you, when the right opportunity comes, you're not like going back and figuring out how to get all of that done. Okay, so let's start with the CV. Now, CV is basically, can tell me some, like someone tell me like, why a CV is important.
because
The
it's a
shortlisted
reflection.
whether to speak or not. Decided based on CV.
The this decide based on CV. Yes, correct. Yes, and
It's more often than not the first barrier.
it's the first barrier. Yes. Gunjan, Avinash.
I think it also helps you figure out where your own strengths lie and like what you've done. It helps you evaluate things also. Like
Hmm.
apart from like just job
Correct.
shortlisting.
Correct. Creates a lot of self worth also. Yes. Hmm. Gunjan, are you there? Any points?
Yes, it basically tells you about the skills you have. The first step of shortlisting starts with that if you have the qualification for that particular job.
So you're not very audible. Okay. Sangeeta, what were you saying?
I was saying the CV is the first reflection of you, what exactly you do.
Correct.
I
Correct.
mean, a person knows little bit about you through your CV.
Correct. So it's like the digital equivalence of yourself. You're basically sending your CV across to form an impression of who you are. This is like a first impression that you're going to make towards your new company. It represents all your hard work over the years. It basically is a snapshot of your life energy, like how you spent your life energy working towards something. This basically captures that. So this becomes a very very important document for you to take pride in. Like once you sort of complete this, you will feel very good about yourself because you've captured all your years of hard work in a place where you can see it. होता क्या है कि काम करते करते भूल जाते हैं कि काम भी क्या किया है. So over time it feels like a drag to like make this document because you don't like realize कि कितना काम हो चुका है और क्या काम किया है. So the impact that you're having onto your work, capture that regularly so that you don't have to sort of do this exercise over years because उतना याद भी नहीं रहता है. So um, just to kick things off, how do you basically start this exercise? Is list down all your achievements. I know all of you guys have created your CVs already. I'm sure you have them ready. But just as an exercise, start with all the achievements post your school or within your school also. Do all the school projects, college internships, any societies you were part of. In your workplace, if you've taken on any projects, what is the like all the achievements that you've ever had in your life, just make an exhaustive list of that. Forget the CV, just do the exercise in an exhaustive way on a document first. His document may apart from the achievements that you've done, put down as many numbers as you remember. What are the details of the project? What went into the um, like how do you define the achievement becomes very important in this. So when you write down the achievement saying ki I participated in a college internship which basically was where I was doing cold calling, तो then cold calling में क्या कितने फ़ोन कॉल किए, कितने क्लोज किए, क्या रेवेन्यू इम्पैक्ट था, mention all of that in this document so that you have that handy. um, the next step to do is basically and do that for your hobbies and skills also. um, it could be like as vague as a barista at a coffee shop that you basically tried it out for a summer internship कि मैंने यहाँ पर internship किया, या फिर a filmmaking course or a like a travel house project, or even like serious projects where you basically went and did like an Excel project for a data company. So whatever you basically have done in your life, try and sort of capture that in an exhaustive list in a document format with numbers and achievements and KPIs. यहाँ तक you guys are with me?
Yeah.
Yes.
ठीक है. Don't have any judgments. Don't sort of keep any judgments when you're making this document. This document is for you. This is for you to capture everything that you've done. So don't sort of start with saying ki this is not impactful or this is not as good. Anything and everything goes. It's fine. Okay.
I have a question.
Sure.
Okay, so you mentioned that start with your achievements, right? I just want to understand. So, since I work in a core operations role,
Hmm.
right, where we do not have very much of a KPIs which I can put in the quantitative format.
Hmm.
So you can get a quality work from me, but if you ask me that the kind of quantity I have delivered so far, that will be very difficult for me to put in the numbers. So how would you suggest me to do that? I mean, how should I figure out? Even if this is just a quality work, मैं उस quality works में से quantitative work में कैसे अपने CV के अंदर represent करूँ? That's a challenge.
Okay. But do you have a KPI with your work?
Uh, yes. So we have KPIs of. So I'll give you an example. Let's say 100 people, 100 students has enrolled for a specific program. Let's say marketing and sales management का एक program है. I'm कोडिकोड से run कर रहे हैं हम.
Hmm.
वहाँ पे 100 students, 100 students ने enroll किया है.
Hmm.
Out of 100 students, so जो मेरा काम है वो sales का काम होने के बाद में शुरू होता है. So once the sale has done, sold out the program,
Hmm.
let's say the sales has collected only 60% of the fee.
Hmm.
So 4 installment में फीस है, 1 साल का प्रोग्राम है, 2 installment स्टार्ट से पहले कलेक्ट हो गया, तो बचे हुए 2 installment मैं कलेक्ट करती हूँ स्टूडेंट से, बेसिस ऑन माय सर्विसेज व्हिच आई डिलीवर टू द पार्टिसिपेंट्स.
Hmm.
One. Then I have a target of maintaining that only 7% of the people can be drop out of the batch. So let's say if 100 ka batch hai, I can only afford 7 dropouts from the batch.
Hmm.
If it goes 8, then there's a zero incentive for me. If it is in the terms of incentive, then there's a zero incentive. Then I manage end-to-end escalations of the participants. So अगर किसी को कोई escalations आती है, then there's a defined time 24 to 48 hours में. You try to resolve it. Otherwise, you just take it to the concerned stakeholders and try to get a resolution from them. So there's a lot of follow-up include.
So
ये two metrics I could understand कि ये quantity
So
हो
these are
सकता है,
two
but
things, right? Like one is attendance, like maintaining a specific amount of retention within a batch, and the second thing you're basically taking care of is like drop-offs of escalation.
Mhm.
So mention that like maintained a batch of like a cohort of 100 students at a 95% attendance, with like a escalation resolutions within 24 hours or something. Like you can sort of frame it in a way that makes it sound very impactful, depending on the KPIs that you have.
Got
ठीक है. Okay, guys, can you switch on your cameras? I can see you then. Um, I know, Sudhir, you're traveling. It's okay.
I'm sorry, I'm just roaming about. It's my brother's wedding.
Oh,
So
yeah,
I'm
okay.
also listening to you, but I'm roaming about. So then, but I'll switch it on. I'll keep it
Okay,
on.
cool, cool.
I might keep switching it off. On and off.
ठीक है. Um, okay, yeah. So then, why a one pager? A one pager basically puts an artificial constraint on you to showcase only the relevant pieces. I've seen like a lot of CVs over the years, just may like people go on for pages and pages, and this is like a very sort of becomes a very subjective description of their jobs. What we want to do is basically capture whatever you've done in like a 6 to 10 seconds kind of a fashion, so that people who are looking at your CV can understand your profile in that time frame, and that's all they do. Your CV gets filtered in like 5 to 10 seconds. No one has like the mind space or the bandwidth at an HR or a founder level to go through your CV and read everything that you've written. What they're scanning for is keywords. What they want to understand is, do you fit the profile or not? Do you have the skill set? Like if they're looking for a growth or a GTM role, then have you done that kind of role before? If they're hiring for a sales role, then do you have the relevant cold calling experience? Do you understand how softwares work? Like CRMs work. So depending on the kind of role that you are applying for, those keywords need to be there, and they're very, very important, and they need to be highlighted in a fashion that can be read within the first, like 6 to 10 seconds. Because उससे ज़्यादा कोई पढ़ता नहीं है. So that's why I'm insisting on a one-pager CV. I will share the different formats with you guys. मेरा अपना कोई format है, and then there's like a Harvard के भी बहुत सारे documents हैं where they basically share the formats, etc. So in today's class assignment, I'll share that with you, and you guys can pick whichever one you like the best, and then sort of work with that. Second most important thing when you're creating a CV, you need to write for your audience. बहुत टाइम ऐसा होता है कि वी राइट थिंकिंग लाइक ओ दिस इज़ द बेस्ट CV की मैंने जो किया है मैं वो लिख देता हूँ, तो फिर आगे देखेंगे. दैन वी बेसिकली लाइक थ्रो इट आउट एंड होप फॉर द बेस्ट. That's not how you want to write your CV. The person reading the CV should be the person that you're writing it for. So very very important that you understand who's going to read your CV. Do you guys understand what I mean by that? That for example, if you're applying for an edtech company, then what is important for an edtech company, you need to understand that. Like probably understanding how to GTM works. Like they will have to see like, oh, do you have GTM experience or not? So try and sort of like back channel that in your CV. Like figure out how to sort of have those keywords in your resume. Very very important, don't lie in your CV. Like बहुत बार ऐसा होता है कि we go with the flow and sort of just like keep mentioning stuff which is not true. Sure, like it's good to emboss things, it's good to highlight stuff. Maybe like take a 10% 20% leverage saying कि हाँ मैंने sure, we don't have a number. For example, जैसे संगीता के केस में कोहॉर्ट का नंबर नहीं है हमारे पास, तो यू लाइक टू से हाँ मैंने 95% अचीव किया है एक्सेट्रा. वो मेरा अंदाज़ा है. श्योर, बट डोंट लाई टू अ पॉइंट वेयर इट साउंड्स लाइक रिडिकुलस. वेयर इट साउंड्स लाइक कि सामने वाले को लगे कि ऐसा होता ही नहीं है, तो फिर ये कैसे लिखा हुआ है इसने. कि हाउ इज दिस पर्सन फॉर एग्जाम्पल डूइंग like a product role and operations role together in the same job. Like if you write like I wrote a PRD, so then people will ask you, let's say, a question about PRD, like PRD क्या होता है and उसमें क्या क्या sections होते हैं, how do you basically write down requirements. So the reason I'm saying don't lie is you don't want to take the conversation. Let's say you get through the first round, you get selected for an interview. In the interview, you don't want the conversation to go in a direction where you basically you come across as someone who doesn't know what they're talking about. So control the narrative by basically not lying, by keeping it to your core strengths, by keeping it to your competence. You guys are with me in this? Questions?
So just one question.
Hmm.
So one is lying, one is exaggerating a bit, okay? So in a way it can also be lying, but I'm just trying to understand when you exaggerate a few things, right? So for example, in my case, I've worked on programs with corporate clients, and I know the value of those programs, the deals that happen. So I have positioned it in my resume as that I was responsible for closing these deals worth 15 lakh plus. That is okay, right? Although I wasn't the one who got these programs in, it was my boss who was responsible for closing the deal. I basically came in later and worked on the programs.
The thing is that it's all about confidence. When I ask you about, let's say, if I was on the other side and ask you like, how did you go about closing the deal?
Yeah.
How much detail are you able to give me? Are you able to basically say that, I laid down the groundwork, I basically got all the stakeholders involved, I basically set the bar about, I did the research for the negotiation, and then I gave all the tools to my boss to basically close the deal. So that's what I did. So then it sounds...
Sorry, go ahead.
Then it sounds very like, that what did you do basically in that? You helped closing it? Sure, I closed it also because I did all the groundwork and I, pushed all the stakeholders in the right direction. Or the other thing is like, I was given all the information and I ended up closing it with all the information needed by, like negotiating in 3 rounds with the stakeholder, for example. Um, so as long as you're not, like if you're that person in that group project जो कुछ नहीं करता है, and you're claiming to be the person who's done everything, that don't do. But if you are a co-author to something, huh?
Basically don't get like caught. Like I've prepared my answers over a period of time, right? That
Huh.
this is what, if I'm justifying, if I'm writing a pointer on my resume, this is how I'm justifying it.
Hmm.
So some I'm able to do with good confidence. Some I think I still struggle with, right? So because maybe I haven't been in a situation wherein they have grilled me on those particular
Hmm.
pointers, right? So this is why I was trying to understand that where and what I can probably mold and how much can I mold.
हाँ, so I'm saying like 10, 20, 30% चलता है because हर कोई करता है, and you
Yeah.
should do it because like what you want is to get ahead. That's okay.
Yeah.
Um, the problem comes when you basically blatantly say that you know you've done a project which you haven't. If you've been very hands off with something and you say that you've done it, फिर वो confidence नहीं आता अपने आप में बोलने का, या detail नहीं पता होते. So in those situations, I would say just like don't mention it because it's not going to help. Um,
Sure. Makes sense.
okay. Any other? Sudhir, you were saying something?
No, no.
Okay. Okay. How do I want you guys to basically divide this experience? 60% work experience. Then the rest of it you can sort of divide it between education, awards, extracurricular activities. This is just a general guideline. Uh, the idea is to come across as someone who's well balanced, who is a well rounded person. It's not just that you only have work experience, but पढ़ाई भी की है, like एक्स्ट्रा करिकुलर कुछ खेला भी है, कुछ ट्रैवल भी किया है, कुछ like पार्टिसिपेट भी किया है सोसाइटी में, कुछ कम्युनिटी सर्विस किया है. It makes you come across as someone who's basically a little wholesome as a person. Uh, the the honest truth is that everyone wants good people on their teams. Like competence तो एक चीज़ है, but the other thing is that if you have good people in your team, then automatically that raises the bar. I don't know if you guys have heard about this whole raise the bar kind of rounds that happens. Like after a certain point with co-founders or founders, they basically only take a culture round. HR heads लेते हैं या फिर founders लेते हैं, वो culture fitment के देखते हैं. Culture fitment is nothing but are you someone who we get along with as an organization. And a good way to basically signal that is कि मैं भी बहुत interesting हूँ. मैंने भी like I also have interests, I have hobbies, I have things to talk about. It's not that I have a unidirectional personality. I only come to work and I work and वो अच्छा है, that's good, that's that's expected. But apples to apples comparison में how you get ahead is basically if you signal that you have a like more interest than just work. ठीक है.
Can it backfire in some case, especially when you are applying for startups? And I remember this one company had said, "Hey, we have a very hustle culture. We work Mondays to Saturdays, and you will be required to be available at odd hours." And there I was saying, "Hey, I have a passion project that I also work on over the weekends."
Hmm.
Right? So in these cases, can it back? I felt like it did backfire.
It backfires when you basically say you have time commitments and other things that are actively involved in. But when you
Or you
say,
just portray yourself as like you have a lot of other interests. So they tend to see that because this person is doing extracurriculars, different things, they might not be available on the weekend, for example, to, get on a call or something of that sorts.
So then you want to, technically what you're trying to say is कि मैंने ये सारी चीज़ें की हैं पहले.
Okay.
I'm an interesting person now who has a lot of time now. But I used to do everything before. You know, like, you don't want to say कि मेरे weekends blocked हैं because I'm doing an MBA. Uh, which is, like, if it's an honest truth and you need the time to basically do all of that, say it.
Yeah.
You have to say it because it's not practically possible, to be in two places at one time.
True.
So,
Is it like presenting yourself that, hey, I'm chill kind of guy?
basically what you want to say, like, that I do have interest. Like, I've traveled, to 26 states in India. मेरे दो ही स्टेट बचे हुए हैं टाइप्स और it comes for like interesting conversation. But you don't want to say I have a mountaineering course coming up in like 2 months for a month, right? Of course it's interesting, but then the person's gonna be like, like, how do I hire you if you have a commitment of a month? तो वो फर्क है कि like, try and sort of, like I said, it's like a snapshot of yourself, of your digital self. Make it look very very good, and you don't want to make it sound like like you don't have a life outside work. um, so that's why I'm saying, like, it's important to basically balance it out with like multiple stuff. um, like, upskilling is great if you sort of put, on the weekends I'm upskilling so that I become a better professional, and it sort of aligns with your job. Nothing like it, like taking a data crunching course over the weekend if you are going into an analyst role. बोल दो Coursera में I'm taking a paid course for 6 months so that I become better. Why will they care? They basically want someone who's getting better, right? So it really depends on the narrative, and which is what I'm going to tell you about the work X. In the first 10 seconds of the screening, what they want to basically see from top to down is कि आपका narrative क्या है, कि is there like a link from the first job to the second job to the third job, reverse chronologically. Is it making sense? When I say making sense, if you basically are going from sales to product to operations to like business management to basically, you could be doing that also. ऐसा नहीं है कि नहीं कर रहे होगे, but the way you're representing that information needs to make sense. It will make sense to even change designations to basically represent what you were truly doing instead of the organization's क्या बोलते हैं उसको, designation sometimes, because what you want to basically say that, remember Kainat, like 91 Springboard had like designations which made no sense in the market. Like hub managers or like center managers were called hub orchestrators, which obviously means, like it's confusing for people basically outside, right? So it's okay to basically change stuff for it to make sense. And then if someone asks you about like, oh, like इसमें तो कुछ और लिखा है, you can tell them that this makes, this is what we used to do, so to make sense in the market, this is why I changed it. तो बोल दो explicitly बाद में जब पूछा कोई. But very very important to basically be having a conversation with the market. Like I said, you're writing for your audience. अगर आपके audience को समझ नहीं आ रहा है कि वो क्या है, तो उसका लिखने का कोई फ़ायदा नहीं है. I already mentioned the keywords according to the job. The keywords you will actually find in the job description also. कि अगर आप GTM रोल के लिए अप्लाई कर रहे हो तो उसमें लिखा होगा कि GTM रोल के लिए क्या क्या कीवर्ड्स होते हैं. तो वो कीवर्ड्स उठाओ और बेसिकली अपने उसमें डाल दो, एंड देन लाइक फिगर आउट हाउ यू कैन बैक चैनल इट, लाइक ट्रैक इट फ्रॉम योर एक्सपीरियंस टू योर कीवर्ड. Sorry, I forgot something here. In your education, important, if you don't have the marks, don't write them. कोई ज़रूरत नहीं है लाइक 40% लिखने की, इतना ट्रांसपेरेंट होने की ज़रूरत नहीं है. इट्स ओके टू बेसिकली जस्ट लाइक जस्ट राइट कि मैंने ये डिग्री ली है यहाँ से इस ईयर तक, अगर उनको नंबर चाहिए तो फिर वो पूछ लेंगे इफ़ इट्स इम्पॉर्टेंट, लेट देम आस्क फॉर इट. But on the flip side, if you got like a 95% in your 12th, लिख दो, you know, like, but don't mention stuff that makes you look bad. It's okay, you know, like, um, you don't have to be like super um, transparent, lack of a better word.
But then over here, you'll have to be consistent, right? Like, you can't mention your 12th marks and then not mention your engineering marks and then mention your post graduation marks.
नहीं, किसने कहाँ कहाँ लिखा है consistent होना?
Achha, so that's okay.
हाँ.
So I also wanted to ask Sachit.
Hmm.
So I think the division that you've mentioned here,
Hmm.
it probably made sense to me when I had about, let's say, 3, 4, or even like 5 years of experience.
Hmm.
Right. So over the years, I've also seen my CV, evolve, right? Like how I have probably. So I wanted to, like, I have now reached a stage wherein I don't mention awards and extracurricular. I have just one paragraph which says unwinding interests, right? Wherein I talk about to make myself look interesting that this is what I do,
Hmm.
right? So I'm reading also. I love to listen to music. I love to travel as well. I'm working with stray dogs, etc. I mentioned that. Awards and extracurricular is completely gone. Similarly, with education, I realized that over the period, I used to first mention my 10th and 12th and then engineering, right? Now it has just come down to just engineering. Like I've removed my 10th and 12th. So
Hmm.
I'm guessing that's also an okay approach. Like, does it still make sense after 8 years of
Sorry,
experience?
1 second, 1 second, 1 second.
Sure.
Hello.
Doorbell है doorbell.
Yeah.
It's a doorbell.
In half an hour. Yeah, 12:50.
It was a call.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, तो you have to mention the other stuff also. Um, so work experience. Let me show you my CV also, and I think we'll sort of talk about that. I think you'll get an idea what I mean. But work experience, as you basically progress in your career, I would say it has fading importance as you go behind. Like past के 2-3 experiences become most important. उसके बाद उससे पहले वाले का थोड़ा वैसा होता है कि लिखो तो ठीक है, नहीं लिखो तो कोई बात नहीं, ऐसा कुछ प्रॉब्लम नहीं है. लाइक यू डोंट लाइक व्हेन यू हैव लाइक 8 years of experience, mentioning college internships doesn't make sense, right? So I would say within the section itself, what you want to do is evolve that section and not like expand that section. Because within the filtering process or the screening process, what they're trying to see, like, do you have that relevant experience? Do you have academic vigor? पढ़ाई की है कि नहीं? Do you have, a well-rounded personality? Are you a culture fit or not? Do you have other interests, hobbies, etc.? So these are different questions you're trying to answer through that document. More experience is not going to help you with other questions, right? So 12 साल का experience है, 15 साल का experience है, तो your 60% of that document should look very solid. Should look like, oh, this guy is a solid guy. This person basically, is a killer. Like when they get on a job, they basically do it. So, but it never sort of like, as you go up in the organization, culture becomes very important because you don't like do everything with authority. You'd have to do everything in influence also. So, are you going to fit into the culture becomes important. So, I would say the reverse happens, that do you have the other stuff in place or not? Do you have the required academic vigor? स्किल सेट है कि नहीं? स्किल सेट तो बेसिकली जॉब से है, बट एकेडमिक्स प्लेस में है कि नहीं? किसी जॉब के लिए मास्टर्स करना पड़ता है, टू बिकम लेट्स से अ बिजनेस हेड समवेयर, और टू लाइक बिकम अ फाइनेंस हेड समवेयर. So do you have the relevant background for that? Culture fit का I already talked about. I do want to mention what kind of stuff do I mean when I say extracurricular activities and awards. यहाँ पर जितना ज़्यादा डाइवर्सिटी है पॉइंटर्स में, उतना अच्छा है. this is a place where you want to mention as diverse things as possible. Like Harvard in their CV basically tries to, like, what they value is physical achievements. For example, like if you've done a 10K run, they will highly value that. um, the reason to do that is कि physical achievements करने के लिए you need a lot of mental tenacity, बहुत ही endurance चाहिए. Do you have the mental strength to basically overcome physical challenges? So they try and sort of tag a physical achievement with your personality. So physical achievements is a good thing. Social work is great. Positions of leadership is great. Travel, but travel को mention ऐसे करना कि it sounds like, like you've traveled 26 states, you've sort of been to like 13 national parks or something. Mention it in a way that becomes a point of conversation. Don't mention it कि I love traveling, I'm a hashtag travel something, right? Don't Instagram it. Actually sort of try and sort of make it a point that people, oh, you've been here types, oh, travel to probably like 10 European countries. It makes it look interesting, right? Like that this interest or hobby that you have, it can be talked about. If you just say like I like traveling, I like cooking, I like like hobbies mein, then that's great. Everyone writes it in that fashion, but write it in a way that becomes a conversation point. This section will help them understand who you are also. Okay, like I said, you have 10 to 15 seconds of attention from the interviewer. So what you want to do is focus on the meat and not the salad. बहुत सारी चीज़ें हैं जो good to have होती हैं, उनको basically हटा दो. हमने पहले exhaustive list बनाई, right? उसमें achievements लिखे, उसमें numbers लिखे, उसमें whatever you've done in your life, wherever you've spent your life energy, you've basically captured that in a document. Then what you want to do is basically figure out a one-pager format जिसमें 60%, 10-15% and 25% you basically divided into different sections, and within those sections you have to figure out what to put. Now in that, when I say you have to focus on the meat, what you want to do is what is the basic, like in a job you might be doing 4 or 5 things, but there are only 1 or 2 things that you get paid for. ये डिस्टिंक्शन are you guys clear with? Like आपका बॉस आपको 4 चीज़ें बोलता है करने को, but the reason why you get hired is only for 1 or 2 things, and if you don't do 1 or 2 things, that's when your performance comes into picture. Rest of it is basically चलो ये तो उतना motivated नहीं है employee. Yeah, I feel like there's some confusion.
No, I think
Could you
Can you
guide
give an
in
example?
Yeah, that would be better.
So मैं इसको ऐसे कनेक्ट करूँ कि अगर सेल्स के लिए किसी को रखा है तो उसको टारगेट दिया और वो टारगेट अचीव कर रहा है, उसको उसी के लिए ही रखा गया है. और within if that person, so let's say sales head की hiring हुई है, he has given a revenue generation target, and what he will do is his major role is delegate, right? He will make a छोटा teams and give every team a different set of targets, and then he will always somewhere in the head कि ओ इससे मुझे 5 लाख का टारगेट लेना है, इससे मुझे 10 का लेना है, इससे मुझे 15 का निकालना है. उसका मेजर फोकस यही रहेगा. तो उसको रखा अपना टारगेट अचीव करने के लिए भी है और अपनी छोटी टीम से टारगेट भी अचीव करवाने के लिए. अदर देन दैट इफ ही इज गेटिंग एनी अदर वर्क then what how it is, मतलब उससे आगे मैं कनेक्ट नहीं करती.
It's good to have कि जैसे I'm a sales manager, my key KPI is to deliver revenue. So my number one focus area is to deliver revenue in my CV also. It's not going to change. Agar the organization is basically implementing a new software like a CRM software and I'm a stakeholder in that, that's good to have. Your CV doesn't have to run over because of this pointer कि I was participating in a software, in an enterprise software implementation where I gave key inputs to improve processes. ठीक है, बहुत अच्छा आपने किया, लेकिन that's not why you were paid. Sure, um, you went over and above your job description to help the organization do that.
So, do you think that does that mention in the CV will help the organization? Ki, okay, let's say after that guy's spending odd 8 to 10 months or maybe a year in the organization, just because he's mentioned that skill set somewhere in the CV itself, so they might approach him for the job rotational role as well, or maybe the internal IGTs.
हाँ, माई पॉइंट इज़ कि अगर आपके पास जगह है सीवी में तो मेंशन कर लो, लेकिन इफ़ यू हैव टू एलिमिनेट देन एलिमिनेट दिस काइंड ऑफ स्टफ फर्स्ट,
Um,
where you were a stakeholder and not the person driving the work. कि आपने पार्टिसिपेट किया उस प्रोजेक्ट में, बट यू वर नॉट लीडिंग द प्रोजेक्ट और इट वाज नॉट डायरेक्टली लिंक्ड टू योर जॉब, तो इट बिकम्स लाइक अ थर्ड और फोर्थ पॉइंट.
okay. So somewhere on the fourth or fifth priority kind of thing.
Okay, in prioritization of information, go with the most important to least important in every job. The number one thing should be your key KPI, कि इसलिए hire किया था, and this is what you get paid for, and then sort of going with the least impactful thing. बहुत बार ये भी आदत होती है कि we basically add stuff because it looks good. बहुत ही vanity type चीज़ें करते हैं हम कि sure Sudhir. So I still have half an hour of stuff to go, so then catch up on the link, I think. So yeah, so remove the vanity points also, because if the person basically interviewing you talks about those points and you have nothing to say and बहुत ही ऐसे surface level चीज़ें निकल के आती है conversation में, so it'll look bad, and that you get filtered out because of that. It's not a good look. Okay, so here very important, readability बढ़ाने के लिए keep the most important chunky stuff on top, and then go downwards in the level of impact or the level of involvement you've had in that work. This is the best practice in your CV. Start each sentence with an action verb. I'll give you a list of action verbs for your own CV. This typically looks like created dash dash dash, initiated dash dash, sold X amount of stuff. So try and figure out how to frame each achievement in an action verb. This already we spoke about. It's like a CV is an achievement document. This is a document where you're basically going to say कि मैंने देखो कितना सब कुछ किया लाइफ में. So quantify everything, because each activity needs to be like a person handling a 2 lakh portfolio versus 20 lakh portfolio versus a 2 CR portfolio is very different. So quantifying things will help the person understand how to look at you in a certain way. Like a business head who basically heads a 100 crore business versus a 500 crore business is a very different person. And ये एग्जाम्पल थोड़ा आर्बिट्रेरी है, लेकिन जब लोग हायर होते हैं तो बेसिकली दे आर स्लॉटेड इनटू a specific role depending on the kind of experience they've or the kind of workload they've handled before. Like no one's going to give you a 100-member team to handle if you only handle like 5 people. तो वो क्वांटिफाई करना बहुत ज़रूरी है अपने काम को. The other thing to do is when you mention like you achieved something, डू ट्राई एंड मेंशन कि वेयर डिड यू टेक इट फ्रॉम, लाइक जब काम करना शुरू किया था तो वो कौन से स्टेज पे था, और वेयर डिड यू टेक इट, लाइक अचीवमेंट में कि मैंने -15 लाख से 2 CR तक ले गया मैं, और आई बेसिकली टुक द SLA फ्रॉम 78% to 95%, और I basically reduced process breakage from 90% to 60%. So, like, try and basically help them understand how much of an impact you've had by mentioning where did you get involved, where did you start getting involved in, and where did you end. Okay, let me try and show you a CV also. So ये 2-3 साल पहले मैंने बनाया था CV. Can you see this? Okay, yeah. So I'll share this format with you guys. What you can do is basically what you see is like name, location, mobile number, how to get in touch, etc. There is work experience. There is education, which doesn't mention any marks for obvious reasons. And then like what's an extracurricular activities, which is like like, oh, if you've been part of like a film institute or like a, जैसे मैंने किया था कॉलेज में ये सब, उसके बाद मैंने कुछ किया नहीं, तो I don't have too much to basically say for it, but you guys must, right? So the consistency, like even Kaina, this is important for you because you sort of said that you're in a generous role and you've been sort of working that way. Like even though I've had different industries and different sectors in my CV, what I'm trying to say is like I'm a very 0 to 1 kind of guy. Like if you look at the designations, like entrepreneur in residence, co-founder, chief of staff, founding team, etc. करके मैं बोल रहा हूँ. The reason I'm doing that is because I'm trying to say that I'm a very sort of early stage kind of person. I'm very founding team, or a very entrepreneurial kind of a person. So it becomes very clear from this CV that this person will be very good at probably like a 0 to 1 kind of project, or something early stage, or something when I want to set up something, that this is the person to basically work with.
You'll be sharing this with us, right?
I'll share the format. I'll share more formats also with you guys. The action verbs are here, like like built a team, ran the scholarship program, undertook company-wide projects. This I have removed in my most recent one because this is a good to have. Like इसमें मैंने बहुत कुछ किया भी था, लेकिन I have better stuff to basically showcase now. Co-created, created, ideated, built. So the action verbs that you use in your CV basically show how or what kind of a work have you done. So action verbs में मैं दूंगा, तो then pick what sort of makes the most sense for you. ठीक है. Any questions on this? No? Okay, next. Okay. Why is making a LinkedIn profile important?
That's the first thing people are checking nowadays.
Correct.
It's also good for people to discover you. So CV is more of you sending it. LinkedIn, you can easily get discovered.
Correct.
Right. And it also gives them some kind of authenticity as well if they find some kind of common connections, which helps.
Correct. Yeah. You get verified, yes, in your network.
Right.
You can put things over there which you haven't put on your CV because CV is limited.
You can put things, yes, sure. Okay. And Gunjan?
Nowadays, people also brand themselves on LinkedIn. Like,
There's a lot of
they
branding.
show, yeah.
Yeah, it's basically branding yourself. CV is like a one pager, whereas in LinkedIn, you can tell a lot of your achievements and the courses you have done over the period.
Hmm. Right. Um,
And I
so,
think it could also give a face to your CV as well, because not everybody puts a picture on their CV, right? But they do put nowadays their LinkedIn link, so people can go and check the profile picture and then connect your CV with the personality. It helps.
correct. So, building a brand, building a network, forming good first impressions, um, all these things are, and getting discovered. So, all these things are basically what you can do with your LinkedIn profile. And it's like if you have a good LinkedIn profile, it can become very powerful for you. Um, so, without getting into too much depth, I think I just want to talk about the best practices for LinkedIn. So first is like profile picture, right? Like you don't want a profile picture which is too formal. Don't put a passport picture. Um, don't put a beach picture also. Don't go very casual. Do a semi professional picture which makes you look approachable, right? Your profile will get a lot of, like, it will make your profile better if you have something that makes you look approachable. Second, profile byline. There are a lot of people who basically write like dreamers, achievers, um, a lot of vague stuff in their profile byline, which is good. It's great for Instagram, but it's not great for LinkedIn, right? What you want to come across as is someone who's a professional. Um, so be simple. If you can't be creative, be simple. Be very straightforward, about what you're trying to do. Uh, it's good to sort of have, it's okay to name drop also. A lot of people basically say X this, X that. It helps, um, like being associated with brands basically helps you get better click through ratios, like better होता है. तो अगर byline में if you want to mention previous work experience, previous companies that you worked with, great. I think that will help you only. In the about section, again, if you like, use GPT if you don't want to be too confused. Like if you're confused about it, just GPT it, just put the bullet points of who you are, and then it'll give you a nice crisp one paragraph about who you are. Otherwise, write something nice. Write something that you want to. Yeah, sure.
One question. So, I think in the about sections there are two types of people, which what I have understood so far through LinkedIn, like checking out the profiles nowadays very frequently.
Hmm.
So, first people, there are kind of people who talk about themselves in the about, and then there are people who talk about themselves as a third party. So let's just I will write down in my about itself, oh, Sangeeta has worked with the tech industry and she has more than 13 years of work experience in this and that. She has a very good understanding of SQL, Tableau, Jira, etc., etc. So
Uh,
is this is a right way to write down in your about?
yeah, the thing is, it's a lot about style. Like I would
Okay.
say, first person is better because it just speaks directly to people. Like hi, welcome to my LinkedIn profile, for example. Like if you want to go that side, if you want to really go into first person writing and try and write a letter to the person, it will help. Like if you're good at it, then it really helps. um the other thing is third person is more very third person is very formal.
Hmm.
Like if you're going to a very formal industry, sure, that makes sense. um but I don't think most of, like, you guys are not going to, like, that formal an industry.
So, so start with something catchy, basically. Hey, thank you for checking out my profile.
No, no, no. I'm not saying that. I'm saying first person. First person versus third person is what I was saying. Yeah, about
Okay.
me, you can
Mhm.
basically keep it to first person. Hey, I'm a marketing professional with 9 years of experience in XYZ industry. I have done this type करके कर सकते हो first person में. There's no problem. versus the third person is more for, like I said, formal industries, like where you have to, where people are not like informal, for the lack of a better word.
Got
If you don't have too much to say about your professional experience in the about, mention your professional aspirations. It's good to basically talk about what you're looking forward to in this section also.
it.
But writing का यही सीन है कि like you have to write it in a way that it is readable. अगर if you bore the person that they're not gonna read it, and if they're not gonna read it तो कुछ भी लिखो तो उससे कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता है. So make it exciting for the person to read. Write it in a way that you're excited about it. The
Like
tone,
telling about myself to people.
tone should be exciting at least, because without that you're not going to be able to like capture their attention.
Mm, got it. Got it. So, the
Hmm.
word length, what do you recommend? It could be anything. I mean, like let's say put 3,000,
I mean, if
5,000.
you can get people to read like a 500 page, like 500 word about
Exactly.
me, sure, write it. इसमें क्या है?
Okay, so if it is exciting, then people might read it totally.
Yeah,
There's a possibility of that.
there's a possibility of that. The only thing is कि uh, it is very rare.
Yeah,
So,
got it.
so yeah. Number four is experiences. You've already done, like, because we've gone through experiences in length in the CV section, you can just simplify the experiences here and then sort of remove the numbers, etc. Um, you don't want to give out too much information on your public profile, and just mention the creamy stuff, like just the good stuff in your in your experience. Um, यहाँ पर एक एडवांटेज है that you can mention what the company does also. You can mention, like, if you're with a company which basically is a little niche, then you can mention what the company does in the description of the work. Okay, last is building your base. Building your base is basically just recommendations, skills that you want to add. These are all good to have because then it helps you sort of get algo में थोड़ा better हो जाता है profile, because you get matched with like jobs which are in your skill set. URL also you can basically simplify. I don't know if you guys edit your URL. You can edit your URL and basically make it simpler so that it becomes more shareable. Okay, so these are the best practices. The reason to use LinkedIn is obviously not just the the brand building, but also like building a network. The way to build the network is basically talk about your industry, talk about your field. Like I said, you have to be excited about it. So mention exciting stuff that's happening in your industry, any news, any insight that you have. Show expertise basically. Like दिखाओ कि तुम्हें, like, तुम excited हो, तुम basically you are interested in work, you are keeping up with what's happening in that industry, etc. Because that's the way you basically start building a base for your networking. When you basically add people and they come to your profile, they see what kind of things you talk about, they'll understand that this is a person who's interested in this. So you will do away with a lot of noise in your network. बहुत लोग हैं LinkedIn पे तो. What you want is to basically build your network in the field or in the kind of work that you want to be in. If you want to be in the startup space, then talk about startups, talk about what's happening. Like, you heard an interesting podcast recently, like talk about what you liked about in it. add a photo because photo gives you a lot of reach. um, Add multiple photos because multiple photos gives you better reach than one photo. Tag people who basically, you know, are interested, your first circle in that, or people who are relevant to that insight. So you, like, doing all of this will basically improve your reach. I guess with me abhi tak.
Yeah.
Sachet, like just
Hmm.
so for example, I've also been meaning to, start writing on LinkedIn. I don't do that. My LinkedIn is has
Hmm.
been pretty inactive, right?
Hmm.
And consciously so. I had done that, but I also realized in the process that if I were a bit more active on LinkedIn, it would have made a lot of difference, especially in the last 3 years when we were anyway working remotely, etc.
Hmm.
Right? So now it just seems like this thing in itself is like more of a, you need to have like a proper plan in plane. Like I can't just write one day and then just like, go MIA and not writing anything. That doesn't help me. So in these cases, when you are saying, hey, write about, things that interest you, etc., how can one, probably even go about it from the scratch?
um,
And does that really help? Because, there's so much of content out there, and people who have been doing this for quite some time, then you just seem like someone who's coming in and, like just,
I mean, it's better than not doing anything. Let's
all
start
right,
with that. Like, being inconsistent is better than not doing it.
okay.
Consistency will give you a lot of algo help, of course. You know, once you start like writing regularly, like you tag pictures, you tag people, etc., in those pictures, etc., and it sort of becomes a consistent throughput from your side that, hey, this is the industry I'm talking about, this is the kind of um, topics I'm going to talk about, etc. वो बहुत help करेगा over time. But sure, I'm saying like start. It's even if you're inconsistent, if you even if you put something once in a fortnight, or even if the insight is very common, but it excites you, as long as you're genuine in your post, I feel like that comes across, like वो लोगों को पढ़ के समझ आ जाता है कि ये चैट जीपीटी जनरेटेड आर्टिकल है कि ये पर्सन जनरेटेड है.
Okay. But I think at least most of the content or posts that I see on LinkedIn, I can easily figure out that these are just like chat GPT generated and then personalized maybe a bit,
हाँ, तो
right?
मोस्ट लोग
And
वही करते
people,
हैं. मोस्ट लोग वो इसलिए करते हैं क्योंकि फिर इट टेक्स अ लॉट ऑफ टाइम टू बेसिकली जनरेट कंटेंट.
yeah, yeah.
So the way to do GPT also is basically, you have an original insight or some pointers, you put it in GPT, you get an article, then you also again edit it to make it filled with emotion.
And
क्योंकि
sound it more like yourself.
हाँ, correct.
Got it, got it. Okay.
Cool. I'm moving on from this one, but this is very, very important because later on in the course, LinkedIn is going to become like the way to get a job. We'll come to the process of how to sort of start applying, etc. But like this exercise will help you, you know, in many ways more than just like brand building and building a network. Okay. Before cover letters, any thoughts on LinkedIn? Any questions?
No.
ठीक है, ठीक है. Okay, writing cover letters. Yeah, one thing that is very fundamental, and you'll see this across in your personal life also. Like people write letters, it is it has the kind of impact that no other medium has. चिट्ठी बहुत ही ज़्यादा साइकोलॉजिकल इम्पैक्ट करती है लोगों पे. And the better you are at writing letters, the more impact you can have. And cover letters, we basically take them lightly because you think like, oh, what is the point? but it is the most important thing to build your narrative. uh, when people get letters, they feel special. And as an applicant, if you can make your company or your recruiter or your hiring manager feel special, you will get more attention than other people. The idea is to basically get in front of them. You have a long line of, you know, competition that you have to beat to basically get into, um, to get interviewed basically. तो दिस रियली हेल्प्स. बहुत सारे लोग नहीं लिखते हैं कवर लेटर, 98% लोग नहीं लिखते हैं. तो बाय राइटिंग अ कवर लेटर यू बेसिकली गेट 98% इज made up. I've never seen that many cover letters, is what I'm saying. But if you write cover letters, I'm saying even a badly written cover letter is better than no cover letter. So use it to your advantage. Write a cover letter which basically, and I'll come to how to write one also. Um, but just to understand, do you guys write cover letters, Abhi, in your job applications?
So
Yeah.
Sorry, everyone spoke at the same time.
So recently, I just found out like cover letters are really important in Europe. So I started applying for internship and jobs in Europe. They always ask for a cover letter or a motivation letter, which I find it very difficult to write because in India we don't use cover letters
Hmm.
for the jobs and stuff. So yesterday only I wrote one cover letter that why I want to intern, and it was like a internship at European Parliament, but in my technical line only. So I just want you to give me some insights or points if I'm writing the right way,
Sure.
or is it like a good way to write a cover letter, because I find it very difficult, like if I should go about what were my the technical skills I wrote in that, or is it more like telling why I'm so interested in this role and what makes me a suitable
Sure.
candidate.
Sure.
So is it
I'll
okay if I present?
No, so, in the interest of time, I'll send you um, the samples and my cover letter also, and basically what are the best practices, etc. Um, we will we can offline we can connect and I can give you some pointers.
Okay,
ठीक है.
thank you.
Um, ठीक है. Important things to remember. You have to build a narrative. Um, a lot of what we discussed last week also was building a narrative. The whole thing is about how you tell your story. All of your CV, LinkedIn, um, even on your cover letters, basically the story that you're building, the narrative that you're building in the person's head. जो सामने बैठा है जिसके साथ इंटरव्यू कर रहे हो, उसको क्या समझ आ रहा है आपकी कहानी. अगर आपकी कहानी बेसिकली सॉलिड है, दैट यू हैव डन द राइट काइंड ऑफ वर्क, दैट यू हैड द राइट एक्सपीरियंसेस, that you'll be a good fit into the organization because you understand what the organization does in the long term, in the mid term, and your values basically match that. If you can say all of these things in a very convincing way, uh, you will basically get that job. But to, like, what is the way to um, give that information? It's basically a cover letter. वो जो चिट्ठी आप लिखोगे, उस चिट्ठी में बेसिकली यू हैव टू कनेक्ट ऑल द डॉट्स. Okay. Um, right. So, mm, the other reason to write a cover letter is basically to showcase that you're a clear thinker, that you have a thinking mind, that you have great writing skills. Knowledge work में वैसे ही ये दो चीज़ें बहुत important होती हैं. And with a cover letter, you basically showcase that you have good writing skills. You're a clear communicator, and you think right. ज़्यादा लंबा करने की ज़रूरत नहीं है, एक पेज काफ़ी होता है कवर लेटर के लिए. Overall, you have to build a narrative that why should you be hired, right? I'll come to what to do also, like in the next slide. but what you're doing is giving evidence कि you're the right person to be hired. सामने वाला क्या कर रहा है? They're basically a checker, um, to understand if you will be the right person in the job or not, right? So give them evidence using the cover letter that you're the right person.
So this includes putting down some examples there as well.
Yes, it does. We'll talk about how to insert examples also.
Yeah.
Hmm. Okay, so don't be negative. Like even if something negative happened in your life, your manager was an asshole to you, don't mention it in a way that it just reflects. You want to say like, oh, you were in a challenging environment, for example. Like the spin that you want to say is that, oh, it was a tough environment and I was a fighter. You don't want to say like the other person was an asshole and they were uh, trying to do whatever. So the reason to do that is then you're trying to control the narrative, right? Like कोई अगर बात करेगा किसी experience के बारे में where you mention, let's say the focus point is the manager, then they're going to be about कि manager ने क्या किया. What you want to basically control is कि मैंने क्या किया, right? When you say like I was in a challenging environment, I achieved this much, they're going to talk about you, they're not going to talk about the other person. So there is a way to basically mention negative stuff, but it should not sound negative. That's very important. Right, for a 10th grader, very very important. Use short sentences. Yeah, again you can do this through GPT also. Again, like once you have something written down, you can just put it in GPT. It'll sort of correct your grammar, it'll correct your spellings. अब ये बहुत ही like it's become very easy to do this. Grammarly भी use कर लो. It sort of helps you make spelling mistakes नहीं होंगे. Full stop लगा देगा वो. Okay. How do you start? 1 second, let me just. I'll share this with you guys also. This was a cover letter that I had written a few years back, and you guys will also have an understanding of how cover letters evolve. This is a cover letter that I wrote most recently. यहाँ पर देखो, how I started was basically to give you a brief background of my career, etc. etc. इसके पहले भी एक sentence है, but this is a common cover letter that I had written that I'll basically use for all my job applications. So I'm basically saying this is I worked almost exclusively very early in growth stage startups. I've contributed when setting up ops product teams. In the past 9 years, I've done this 5 times successfully. That was me 3 years ago. Now I basically say I'm writing to express my interest in working for this. I'm clearly saying that this is why I'm writing to you. I want to join in this core team, project lead, EIR with 10 plus years of track record, driving innovation and growth. I believe I would be a valuable asset to your team. So you see, like here I'm being a little vague when I'm basically talking about it. Here I'm being a little more pointy when I'm talking about my overall experience, and this can obviously be improved also. Then I jump into who I am. Very important to talk about why you are such a great candidate. पहले तो बताओ कि why are you writing, what is the introduction, then you want to get into why you're such a great candidate. Then you want to establish why will you succeed in this job, which is examples or evidence about what you've done in the past, which will sort of lead up to your success in this one. Then you want to talk about why this company is important. because you're not being vague technically. You want to basically say that, I'm impressed by your company's success, I'm impressed by what you guys are trying to do, what your mission is, etc. So you have to be um, tailored in a way that, and we'll sort of talk about how to do this for 200 companies also. But you have to do this exercise where you at least set up the base for a cover letter, and then you talk about how do you add your value, how will you add value to that company, right? Like that's how you finish. तो चार पांच चीज़ें करनी है कवर लेटर में. ब्रॉडली इंट्रोडक्शन देना है. यू हैव टू टॉक अबाउट वाई यू सच अ ग्रेट कैंडिडेट. थर्ड इज़ वाई यू विल सक्सीड इन दैट जॉब. फोर्थ इज़ वाई दिस कंपनी इन स्पेसिफिक. And fifth is what is the kind of value add you will have if you come into the company, basically concluding that um, you are the right person for the job. I will share samples with you guys. Mm,
So like
hmm,
when it comes to cover letters, you had said like I'm just comparing this to CVs.
hmm,
CV you had said like you have like maybe around 10%, sorry, 10 seconds during which the person who's going through your CV, that's the amount of time they give to your CV.
hmm.
That's why like you have to be to the point, you have to highlight the action words and things like that.
Hmm.
When it comes to the cover letter, like it's a entire page of like you can make it easier to read by having space between the paragraphs, simple sentences and things like that.
Hmm.
But generally, like how much time do people give? Like, do they actually go through your entire cover letter, or what is it?
They won't, to be honest. Not a lot of people basically read in general. Um, the idea is that if you can get a few people to read it, they will be more invested in your candidature, and that's what you want. It's about building a funnel for yourself where you are trying to convince people that you're the right person. And how to sort of broaden that funnel is what we'll come to next week. But having this tool in particular, actually I'd missed out on showing you a very specific thing that I want to show you guys. 1 second. So this was the general what do you say, a cover letter. Then the sectors that I liked, I actually then got on to what is that sector and why does it sort of um, impress me. So I added a few lines about agri-tech. Clean mobility I liked, so I added few lines about clean mobility. EdTech, why did I like? Um, this is how I got a job with Unacademy also, because I wrote to them. Um, so what you want is to basically like customize your application. Like once you have a fundamental like base about who you are, why you're the best, if you have the relevant experience or not, the variables are the company, um, and why the company is a good fitment for you. तो वो वेरिएबल कैसे इंसर्ट करेंगे इसमें, we'll come to that later. But you have to have this handy so that you can, you're ready with all the tools. ठीक है. I will share this week's assignment, which is basically um, samples about cover letters, CVs. So pick the ones you like and create a CV and cover letter for yourself. If you have multiple industries you're applying to, change that, according to the industry. I'm guessing with, I think everyone here is like a little more tenured, so you'll know like what kind of field you're applying to, like sales है कि product है कि ops है. So वहाँ पर ज़्यादा changes नहीं आएंगे, but if you are not sure, then like create a 2 or 3 versions where your profile looks कि this is a salesperson, this is a creator, this is a a GTM kind of person, this is a growth person, this is, so have those kind of CV template also ready. And like I said, like insert keywords where you can do talk about, let's say, product. If you want product jobs, then you're going to talk about product stuff. If you want growth jobs, then you go like put growth keywords in that. So create एक तो basic CV हो गया, basic cover letter हो गया, and then variations depending on what you want. Cool. This was a long class. We don't have too much time for Q&A, but you guys can message me and we can pick it up. I know Gunjan, I couldn't come to your cover letter, but try and sort of do this approach and then we'll have a chat. What do you think? Okay. ठीक है guys, nice catching up. I think let's do this next week. Next week I'll just tell you guys what we're going to do. We're going to talk about how to understand the landscape, what kind of industries, what kind of companies are out there, how do you think about them, how do you research companies, how do you shortlist companies, what are the things to look out for, what filters to use, पीएमएफ कैसे सोचते हैं, पीएमएफ की वजह से क्या इम्पैक्ट होता है कंपनी के स्टेज पे, अर्ली स्टेज हाउ इज़ इट डिफरेंट फ्रॉम अ सीरीज ए सीरीज बी, व्हेन अ कंपनी वांट्स टू स्केल हाउ इज़ इट डिफरेंट फ्रॉम like a tenured company where things are very different. So different stages become very important, so we'll talk about that also next week. But super critical, finish all the career values, the CV cover letter stuff before we get onto that, because that's another different work that you'll have to do after that.
All right.
Cool. Okay.
Alright, thanks, Akshay.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Have a
Bye.
nice long weekend.
You guys too. Bye.